We can continue with the next topic. So basically, Pervin, your role as a professor as well as the director at the IP Law Clinic places you in a very unique, we would say, intersection of academia as well as the real world law. So, how, in your view, do you reconcile the theoretical teachings with the demands of probably the practical legal advice or the practical legal practice while addressing students at the clinic?
So that is, I think it's focusing on the practical aspects. And also, again, it's the can you versus should you question, I think comes up a lot. And as a couple of examples, in the case of negotiating for contracts, for example, in understanding the default, what I call the default rules, what we all call it in law, the default rules, that if you don't contract otherwise, this is what the law says is going to happen. As a one example, in patent law, in many countries, I think most countries throughout the world, whoever invents a piece of technology or creates something owns it by default, unless you contract otherwise. And so there are certain smaller or less sophisticated parties that you may be contracting with that don't understand that. And so it's this question of, okay, is it their fault that they don't know that that these are the default rules? We come up with that a lot in our normal practice as well. And I think that here is where teaching the students that you have to behave ethically. You don't want to have so many, you also are thinking about the business relationship moving forward, right? And your reputation as a company. There are certain cases where, of course, you have to play a little bit of hardball and say, look, if they're contracting with you, it's their duty to get proper legal advice. They can't just be sitting here and becoming their own attorney. They take that risk versus if they just didn't know or hiding certain information, that you just shouldn't do that. I think that is where just bringing in the Zoroastrian faith and the teachings into how you try and instill certain values and morals in your students. That's, the law says XYZ, but in practice, it's really X prime, Y prime, Z prime, this is how it's actually applied. And here is what you should do out in the field. I think that's how you try to reconcile what happens in real life between, and of course, what you learn in law. And another aspect of this is that, it's so easy to just regurgitate information onto paper, like you would in a typical law exam. And what I do in my second assignment every year, and I love this because it's so much fun just watching people's faces say, oh, okay, this is how she wanted me to respond. You and probably you as well, Manas, if you're working with Rashna, you will see that a client will ask questions that they may need not even understand what questions they need to ask, right? So they'll ask some questions saying, okay, I want to patent this design, I want to trademark these slogans or something. I'm taking the intellectual property realm here, and then they'll say, okay, what is my budget that I need to think about? What is the timeline? Things like that. And I say, okay, craft a response to the client. A typical seasoned attorney, you're smiling, Rashna, will say, I need to know more information. I'm not just going to craft a response, right? It's because the client themselves don't necessarily know what they're asking for, right? But I love seeing, I always project the students' responses on the screen and then have them walk me through it and walk the class through it as well, because I think it's important to try and, get people to say, all right, you're no longer each other's competitors. You all are in the same firm. You all are working together here. And so you need to just unabashedly and unapologetically say, here's how I approach this problem. And so the students will, of course, come up with 3-4 pages worth of worth of information. And I'm sitting there saying, all right, you, how long did this take you? 3 hours, 4 hours. And I'm saying, I believe it. I totally believe it that you had to look up what does the fee schedule look like for patents and things like that. What are the laws? What are my, they've thrown at me all of these curveballs. What am I supposed to do with them? And so I said, how much time did you spend? Okay. Here's the model answer, right? The students love model answers. And so the model answer is call me. Let's talk. I have more questions because you as the lawyer probably have more questions than the than the client did, right? And so what you're asking when we say I'm asking more questions is because I'm trying to help you steer me towards giving you the advice you're looking for. And I'm saying, how long did that take? That took 2 seconds, right? For me to write that, call me, or let's pick up the phone and talk. And all that time that you spent, if you were in a law firm, that's not billable. You can't bill the client for that. They're not going to be paying for you to research. They're paying for you to give them advice that they can act upon. So I think that to answer your question, is how we reconcile the practical aspect, and it's also a business relationship that you're developing with your client. You're developing the trust, you're developing the credibility, excuse me, and versus in law school, where again you're trying to just regurgitate everything that's been told to you, and that every question is put there for a reason. Versus with the clients, I don't think you know what you're asking. You're asking for this, but you really need something else, right? So that's it's a lot of fun in that regard.
Absolutely true. I mean, I think out of all these, the most relatable one was this one, which you just mentioned. And I've always, during my interaction with Manaz, tried and emphasized as much as possible on the importance of information and knowledge in order to address either it's a client query or it's a firm update or it's any kind of a research that we are focusing on. I don't know if Manaz remembers, but she was, I think, planning to go for one client counseling competition, and even for that one, we had bracketed each of the components that they had to sort of introspect upon or emphasize upon. And in those also, I sort of advised her or guided her in on lines of trying to understand more information in regards to those particular aspects for her to be able to garner more information and then advise I think the client accordingly. And of course, even the time management thing is something which is very important, so I also lay equal emphasis on having like a timesheet in place wherein we know how much time we're dedicating to what aspect of the work that we're undertaking, so that we're mindful of sort of knowing where we're investing our resources, whether it's our time, energy, money, and how most equitably we're doing it, so that it's commensurating. The fees are rather commensurating even the efforts that ultimately we put in. So thank you for that. That was also very helpful. Now I think the next topic is more for the students who who are interested in taking up moot court competitions, etc., participating in those. I remember during my times, I was also fortunate enough to participate in a couple, including the Model United Nations, which happened at Harvard. So that was a good experience for me as well. Part of a General Assembly, and they give you a topic to discuss, etc., and then there are various parameters that you're sort of evaluated on. So since you've been an esteemed judge at many of these moot court competitions, we would just like to understand from a judge's point of view during such events, what are those kind of traits or values, core values basically? Are they on the ethical front? Are they academic? Are they anything personal that you look for or you emphasize on when you're evaluating the students, when you're giving them feedback? Because that is something that will definitely help them as well going forward basis.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and I can answer from the competitor's perspective as well as the judge's perspective. I will be very harsh on myself from the competitor perspective, and then from there you can say what the traits should be. I would say being prepared, understanding what the facts are is the first, and I'm going to be again harsh on myself here because I didn't when the first time that I had participated, I didn't understand the full facts. I didn't. I take time to read and not just to read in your own. Like I'm an engineer, at heart, and I am very, very introverted. As much as I am very outgoing. I'm an outgoing introvert. So I like to sit in my own corner and just read on my own. That is not going to work in a moot court competition and in the legal field in general. Okay, so you got to learn how to go out there, how to speak with people, exchange ideas. This is where with that previous example with the students at law school, I'm saying I'm encouraging people to get out of that comfort zone. And collaborate more. So that's the first thing. You need to talk to your co-counsel. That's when I'm sitting down as a judge and I recognize some of these traits in me, I'm like, no, you got to stop that right now. You have to go and again, these facts have been given to you for a reason. If you feel that a certain fact is missing, ask questions. You cannot sit there and say that this information wasn't given to me, therefore, you can't imagine sitting before a judge and saying, well, I don't know, the client didn't tell me. It's not an answer. That is absolutely not. I'm not going to be very impressed with you. I would say if I was a judge, I would say get out of my courtroom right now and go and prepare. And once you're prepared, come back and then speak to me, right? That I think preparedness, you can tell at once when someone is not prepared. You just know it. That certain facts that they did not pick up on. And when I say prepared, I'm not just talking about the facts of the case or the facts of whatever the competition is. I'm talking about the law as well. You need to have a handle on the law. If you don't understand the law, then I as the judge, don't want you arguing in front of me. Because if you don't have a solid argument, and when I say solid in the sense not based off of the facts, but the law is on your side, or if you're trying to twist you're trying to mutilate the law in order to fit your particular circumstance, good luck, but not in my courtroom, right? Again, I don't think that. Again, that is also showing me a lack of preparedness because you didn't scour the whole legal text. And that is the expectation. That's what they're paying us lawyers to know. And this is what our Whirlpool, not to bring it back to Whirlpool, but this is what our Whirlpool CEO had explained as far as why we have a very strong and why he's so interested in having a good, strong in-house legal department, which is, look, all these laws are publicly available. Anybody can go and look them up. But you as the lawyers are the ones that know them all, or at least should be aware of them all, and understand how to strategize and use it to our advantage and figure out whether we're within the bounds, out of bounds, and how we can get to where we want to go within the confines of the law. So if you as students don't understand that, and this is where you got to make those mistakes and then get someone to give the proverbial kick in the pants to have that mindset of being a strategic thinker. That's what I would say as far as moot court. Try to be creative within bounds. That's the main goal, I think, of the moot court competitions, is to teach you that.
Yeah, no, I think these were very helpful takeaways. Which you mentioned what we garnered were, I think, important to be prepared, important to collaborate as a team, ask questions, as many as possible, to, again, coming back to the point of seeking information, which then helps you take informed decisions, make sure that you know the law, make sure that you accurately interpret the law within the context of the case that you're handling. So I think these are very, very important pointers which you sort of highlighted. And of course, then coming to the many hats that you are wearing in your dual role as a legal counsel at Whirlpool. We already heard quite a few principles that Whirlpool stands for through the course of our discussion so far. But again, between Whirlpool and, again, as being a law professor, how is it that you have been able to uphold the values of our tenets of Hunta, Hukta, Huva, Rashta, which we also briefly touched upon in our earlier topic? Is it that the cultural and spiritual identity that you carry as a Zoroastrian has ever allowed you to have this kind of a unique perception or a lens sort of a thing through which you take on the work on a professional front, as well as in terms of mentoring the future legal professionals that you have at college?
Yeah, I think like you said, we did touch upon a few of those concepts, but
Sure.
I think the most important of the good thoughts, good words, good deeds, and knowing that action behind them, and actually just putting it into practice, and having the faith that things are going to be okay and they will work out, even if you didn't. The whole point is not to claw your way to the top at the expense of others. And promoting others and helping you, for example, you, Manas, and anybody else, to reach your full potential is not going to diminish my ability to reach my full potential. It's not going to dim my light by helping you to brighten yours. And in that regard, I think bringing it back to the profession, when we're negotiating contracts, for example, yes, both sides often the reason that legal gets pulled into it is because both sides cannot agree on certain points. Um, but then it's not just about, okay, I'm Whirlpool, therefore you have to do what I want to do. There's certain circumstances for administrative efficiency, for example, that we would want Whirlpool's paper, like Whirlpool's templates, to be used. No exceptions, things like that. Of course, it's going to be more written in more deference towards the drafter, right? But at the same time, there are you can bend in certain circumstances. I think that's where I'm saying, all right, guys, I tell our team, it's okay if we negotiate or compromise a little bit on certain points. It's going to make the other side more comfortable. It's going to facilitate and foster a good business relationship moving forward. And it looks like we're being reasonable too. And I think of this almost like a game of chess where, okay, there's certain pawns you're not going to end up, and you're certainly not going to win by keeping all of your pieces. You're going to have to understand, and this is where also being prepared and understanding the nature of the game, the rules of the game, will help you in making sure that you keep the end goal in sight, which is to keep the king safe. And in this case, you have to be prepared and understand the deal that you're working on and say, all right, what exactly are your goals? And that's up to the client. And this is where just operating in your own silo is not going to help. You have to learn how to get out of your comfort zone, speak with your client, understand your counterparty as well. It's not just about Whirlpool, it's about the other side as well. What are they looking for? And how can we try to craft our language and our next move to facilitate that? And at the same time, of course, keep our end goal in mind first and foremost. But most of all, try to come up with a win-win. And I think that's the Zoroastrian putting righteousness into action. And then 9 times out of 10 things work out very well in the end. Takes a while, but they do work out very well.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Absolutely right when it comes to, explaining to fellow lawyers about how best it is to reach a middle ground, especially when we're talking more about transactional lawyers. I would say this should ideally be the end goal, and to the maximum extent possible, especially in negotiations. It would be better if the other side's interests are also taken into account, like you rightly pointed out, rather than, I've been a part of a couple of transactions wherein the only end line that is told to us is, oh, but we are X company or we're Y company. So to the extent of wanting to imply that, we obviously get the upper hand in what we're saying right now, only because we're that. So yes, you are that, but with that, if there would be a justification following it, it would make more sense rather than it just ending the conversation at we saying that, okay, now it's either us or the highway because we are that giant entity in play. So yeah, very very rightfully spoken about this point. So thank you. And yeah, now I think we're just having the last question for you. Because we've already inundated you with so many. But so what advice would you sort of have for our young legal professionals, especially those who are looking to still build their careers? Because ZAL is mainly focusing on, the youth here, how best we can advise them with regards to specifically maybe a first generation lawyer like me, who's looking to sort of take on this particular profession. And of course, even for those who may be considering going abroad, how best would it be for them to pursue this there, since um, since you have done that, and at the same time, staying connected to their Zoroastrian roots. So, how best would you suggest or advise that they balance both of them out?
Well, I think that you and we could all probably give certain. We will probably, I think it would overlap as far as the advice that we would give. I think one of the first is you have to be prepared to work hard. It's not the success is not going to come to you. I think that you touched upon that, Rashna, as well. Think the success is not going to be given to you. The client's work is not going to be given to you. You are going to have to step out of your comfort zone. You are going to have to, pull a lot of all-nighters as far, in order to gain that trust. This trust can be broken in an instant, and it takes years to develop that credibility. And your reputation matters a lot. I sometimes, that if there's a lawyer that I'm trying to onboard within Whirlpool, for example, I will look them up. I'll look them up if there's something that I'm not saying as far as political, everybody has the right to their own opinions there, but certain things that I've seen online, just don't do it. Think about your reputation, your marketing. You have to self-market and make sure that, okay, would I be okay if my future employer saw this on the website one day? Or can I explain it away? And that being said, people make mistakes, and then have a good, mature answer ready for whatever is on there that you wish wasn't. We grew up, I think, Rashna, in a at least a good portion of our lives without having to worry about that, because social media, at least when I was in college, was when it was the rage, at late college, and I, only in law school and thereafter did I start really, really getting into it. And actually, I deactivated at that point, and be okay with deactivating on that note, in order to just cut yourself off from the things that are distracting to you. Because, my dad, he always used to tell us girls, I have two sisters, it's a work now, play later, play now or work later. The amount of work remains the same. So just keep that in mind, that this, whatever you're going through right now, Mana, as you're still an intern, you're probably thinking that this all is like light years away. It's not. Just stick with the grind as long as you can, and it's going to be over relatively quickly, and it'll pay off in dividends. So I think work hard, work honestly, and have the faith that things will work out in the end. But have your conscience clear. I think that having all of this, like whatever success that you get, as long as it's with a clear conscience, you're going to enjoy it a lot more. So I think that those are the main, especially for the students. I'll stop preaching, but those are the main, I think, tenets that I would say follow. Stick true to that, as tempting as it'll be to veer from that. It will pay off. Trust me, 100%. So.
Absolutely. I mean, couldn't have summed it better for them in so many good words. And thank you so much. And I think as we draw this enriching session, I would say, to a close, I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to our esteemed panelist, Pervin, for so generously, sharing her journey, what values you stand for, the insights, the experiences, anecdotes. It's been truly a privilege to witness such candid thoughts, reflections that you've shared with us. And before we conclude, Manaz would be giving the vote of thanks. But before that, if Pervin, you would like to share any closing thoughts or suggestions for, once again, the future of ZAL, or this meaningful conversation series that we plan to continue or hope to continue to have.
Absolutely. No, I first, appreciate you, Rashna, Manaz, for giving up a good portion of your evening, of course, not just towards this presentation towards this panel discussion, but of course towards the preparation. And this is not the only one that you're hosting, I know. So thank you for this one as well as for the ones to come. I think that what ZAL is standing for is great. I think connecting fellow Zoroastrian lawyers who are and trying to find something that's unique. There's so many different organizations, as you probably heard from what I'm involved with, from you, what you must be involved with. But then having some sort of the value proposition here, which is keeping the faith alive and keeping, when I say the faith, I mean not just in Zoroastrian faith, but keeping the faith in our faith alive. And in a profession that, you wonder, how are we supposed to, score a win for our clients and at the same time do everything right all the time? It is hard, but it is possible. I think that is something that, again, I think is great. I think the mentorship aspect, I would love to, for anybody who, I see a lot of people have connected with me on LinkedIn, let's please keep in touch. And I would love to have even a one-on-one chats, or if there's some roundtable discussions that we can have in the future, happy to get involved with that and, bring in this global international perspective, which I think is also a great way to try and connect us. Again, you're all doing great things. I'm really so happy to see the post that we've reached over 100 members. This is in no small part thanks to you and your all's efforts at recruitment. Let's keep it going and keep people interested and together.
Sure. I mean, thank you so much for your kind words of support, encouragement, guidance. None of this would have been possible without your contributions, invaluable insights like you shared today. And we definitely look forward to continuing this collaboration with you in whichever other capacity. And we plan as much as possible, put our thinking caps on to see how best we can, go about with this collaboration, organization with you, with the others as well. I think the roundtable conference thing also sounds very interesting, doable at the same time too. So we'll definitely endeavor to bring execution to this thought that you've shared with us. And thank you so much once again. And I think on that note, Manas can please give a vote of thanks, and we'll then conclude.
Yeah, sure. On behalf of everyone present, a heartfelt thank you to the Zoroastrian Alliance of Lawyers for curating this exceptional performance, one that not only celebrates professional achievement, but also nurtures mentorship, community, and shared purpose among legal professionals of Zoroastrian heritage. We hope today's dialogue continues many such enriching exchanges, conversations that foster collaboration, deepen connections, and inspire us all to lead with integrity, purpose, and pride in our shared legacy. A special word of appreciation to Advocate Jamshed Mistry, whose unwavering commitment and visionary leadership continue to guide and strengthen this initiative. Thank you all, and a special thanks to Ms. Pervin for being part of today's event.
Thank you. And thank you, Manaz, also for conducting this session so good. Thank you, Pervin, once again.
Thank you all.